Foreflight, once again, has done it with some amazing features, and this video is going to show you what Foreflight has added since their release 6 months ago. Let's get into it.
I'm Jack, a commercial pilot in CFI. Flying has always been a passion of mine, and I love being able to share that experience as a pilot and instructor for those who are curious about soaring through the sky. I hope you enjoy today's video, that you fasten your seatbelt, and that you enjoy the ride.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Jack. I'm a commercial pilot and a flight instructor, and in today's video, we're going to cover some of the newest updates that Foreflight has specifically with dynamic procedures, as these came out not too long ago, but the newest updates are very subtle and something that I think you should really worry about in terms of flying, as this practically applied to me the other day when I was trying to shoot an approach. So let's look at it and let's see what exactly we're looking at. I'm not going to go into basics with the Foreflight dynamic procedures, as there are many videos out there for Foreflight dynamic procedures. If you want to go look at those videos, I'll link Foreflight's down below, as they have some great tutorials on how to use them. So how we get into Foreflight's dynamic procedures is we go up to the flight plan button here, type in the airport, in this case KBGR, then we'll click procedure. And there you go. Once you have the airport in here, it's going to give you the map overlay of how it's all going to work. You'll then click whichever you want to do. So Foreflight here for Bangor has only 1 departure and 10 approaches. In this case, we're going into Bangor for the approach. So that's what we're going to do. This is a hypothetical scenario. So in this case, Foreflight's telling us runway 15. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the ILS 15, and you would pick whichever one applies to you. So essentially, if we clicked vectors to final, you would see it just goes straight into vectors. RINTH gives you RINTH minimums, gives you ICEXI, BGR, you get what I'm trying to say. So we'll go to ICEXI in this example. Then what's cool about this is in the Foreflight dynamic procedures, it lets you pick the minimums that you want. So for example, you got the Cat 2 ILS, if you can do Cat 2, Cat 1, and circling. So we're going to go with the Cat 1 ILS, add to route. And there you go. You can see it auto uploads into here, and you can see the route that we're flying, which is great. Now, if I get out of this here, you'll then see coming up on the side here, we have this whole little chart area here. And this is what Foreflight did 6 months ago with it, and it is really cool. If you don't know how to use this, I'll go through it real quick. You have your brief that you would do for your IFR approach plate. Essentially, when you look at this plate here, I always tell my students, hey, let's go left to right, top to bottom, and make sure you read everything, including the sides with the dates here. This gives it for you in the approach with everything on the plate, except you don't have to worry about reading through and scrolling to figure out where everything is. You can just look here on the side and just go down. So you can see IJVH, 109.5, final 150, test elevation, 192. It's amazing. It has everything there. Gives you all your frequencies. You go down and it tells you everything that you need to know for your minimums on the approach and what you need to meet, which is really cool. And then if you have the premium subscriptions, you can not only use this, but also apply actual images. So for example, you can see short final of the runway and you can see the approach lights. This is the most basic use of how you can use dynamic procedures, and this is just kind of an overview of it. I'm not going to get into details specifically with how it works and what you need to do, but we're going to get into some of the features around it and why these features matter. All right, so now that we've gone through just the basics of why these procedures matter, we're going to get into the updates now with why dynamic procedures are better than what they were before. A couple months ago, I was using these when they first came out, and they were great. I did not have any issues with them, but the problems that I was seeing consistently was whenever you'd click the minimums and you'd click whichever one on the plate, it wouldn't give you an update on a lot of things. For example, NOTAMs, weather, right? You had the approach in here for a long time. It wouldn't update everything on its own. You had to physically go into the airport and check everything to make sure, including what I'm about to talk about with NOTAMs specifically. If there was a NOTAM all of a sudden at the airport that it was closed, or something that happened in flight, which can happen, I've had that happen before, you're not going to get alerted typically. And that's where you got to look and actually click in the airport here. Well, the cool thing now about dynamic procedures and why I'm highlighting this is in here, it has its own category titled NOTAMs. You click that and it'll actually give you all the NOTAMs that are either now or that are going to be within 48 hours coming up. And it is really cool and a game changer in my opinion. I had a flight the other day. I was doing approaches with a student going into an airport. We were doing multiple, so we had to use different runways because we were trying to get different things. And then when we looked at the NOTAMs, we saw that the actual part of the approach for the ILS for the glide slope was down. So we had to use the localizer. And I would have obviously seen that when we did our weather briefing, which I did, but it actually showed up when we did our briefing here in dynamic procedures on the side. And it actually blurted saying, hey, you can't use the ILS because the NOTAM says it's not working. So you have to then go to the localizer minimums. And that's what it said with these NOTAMs here. And then it also says show all NOTAMs. So you can then click all the NOTAMs in this one area instead of having to go through it the hard way of clicking the airport, Bangor International, NOTAM. Then you got airport obstacle TFR. You don't have to do that anymore. It's all right here in the sidebar, and that makes it so much easier when you're trying to manage everything because you don't have to worry about if the airport's going to be closed or if something's going to be broken by scrolling through and trying to figure out where everything is in your iPad when it's right there now just by clicking the NOTAM button. And that's huge. I've had plenty of times where I didn't read a lot of NOTAMs that I thought were, not relevant, but then all of a sudden I didn't see that the date started today or the day of my flight, and I look and I'm like, oh crap, I should have rechecked that. This helps me remember and verify that the NOTAMs that are out there are either going to start happening sooner or are in application right now. So if you're a pilot like me who sometimes misses just the little stuff, not something that you would really care about until it matters, this will help alleviate some of that with NOTAMs because again, it's a sidebar button you push and it is all right in front of you, which is really cool. The other thing that is really cool about these NOTAMs, and I'll get into this kind of quick, is the dynamic NOTAMs. So when you actually click on a NOTAM specifically here and it shows you everything, it also applies to the area that you're in. For example, we have all the NOTAMs here, but I kind of glanced over to the beginning, right? These NOTAMs are dynamic, where it's only for this runway. So if I were to go into flight plan here, let's change the procedure up. Let's go to 3-3 in this case. All right, we'll go to B33, ELSA. Right, if I click that, you can see the top red. It says NOTAMs. I click that, and it will show me dynamically what's going on with this. And in this case, you can see the instrument approach procedure, ILS 133 amended, right? There's something amended with Zoomsy fix. That's why this is now easier to use, is they actually added in the NOTAMs dynamically to the dynamic procedures, which is really cool. This is something that, again, is kind of a small change, but I geek out over it because dynamic procedures are really cool and something that I love using with the way Foreflight's put them in. And it's turned into something that obviously they're in competition with Garmin for something like this, but they finally caught up in the sense of being able to have it all in smart charts, where you can now have all the NOTAMs displayed and everything with the airport, and then you can actually just look at it from the sidebar instead of having to click in the airport again, which is really cool. Kind of a circular video, but this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, and something that I think people are missing is the little details that Foreflight adds are really the keys to using the software, right? If you don't remember the little details, you're never going to remember the little things that do happen in your life, or excuse me, in your flight, that you're going to then think on and mess up again, right? These little things we kind of just brush on. And I see students do this all the time. They look at their iPads, they do their thing, and then somehow it goes in one ear, comes out the other, and they're in the middle of an approach and they're like, well, frick, I just passed the glide slope. I just went full deflection, right? It's stuff like that that gets people. And that's really coming down to just how the little things work with utilizing your iPad. So for me, what I always tell my students is do yourself a favor, right? Give yourself as much time as possible before you even do anything so that you can get yourself comfortable and familiar with the situation before you go into it. And with Foreflight dynamic procedures, I kid you not, it has saved my students so much time just being able to click the sidebar and brief instead of having to just scroll through the iPad here, making sure that they're not able to see anything, because they're just so stuck in this that they forget that everything happening out here is also going on, and they have to keep track of that with flying and obviously looking at your iPad for charts. So it's kind of one of those things where Foreflight is definitely caught up in the fact that people are now able to dynamically look and change their scan, but you still got to remember to fly the airplane. And that's where my students who use Foreflight and use the dynamic procedures, I have seen gradual improvement with them being able to utilize this and know that all they have to do is, instead of trying to figure out where they need to brief the approach, they can just look down to the right and see, hey, this is what I got to do. So that's why this is really cool, and why these features with NOTAMs might be as simple as just, hey, you click the button, but that'll save you 30 seconds of digging and looking in flight where you could miss 2 or 3 things, and then worst case scenario, you crash the airplane in the scenario that you're in that situation. So that's kind of where this is cool. All these little things are life-changing and game-changing the way you fly the airplane, and that's what I wanted to highlight, as this NOTAM button, when you push it, is really cool with these dynamic procedures. Only other thing that I can quickly talk about with dynamic procedures is they are in itself very dynamic, right? I have the ILS 1.5 loaded in here. I can click change approach right here, and it will give me everything I need to in an instant just by clicking it for the ILS 3.3 if I wanted to change, for example. Do that, do ILS, and boom, and look at that. It automatically changes because of how dynamic it is, which is really cool. I also have the option to hide the plate, right? If I have the subscription that gives you the plate, you can click hide plate, and look at that. It changes it, and then it also gives you the MSA around the airport there that you need to know if you're going to be, you know, with the highest obstacle, 3,100 feet. It gives you that now, which is really cool. These procedures are very dynamic, and there's a lot to learn. So I have a whole thing set up at the end of the video that you can see if you want to learn more specifically about this stuff. But this is just a highlight that I wanted to share to everyone, as this is something that I think people are missing and not talking enough about. So with that being said, with that little snippet, thank you guys so much for coming and watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little short thing about how I think this feature has definitely helped both me and my students, and I think it could help you as well if you know what you're talking about and doing with Foreflight and your iPad in the airplane. If you guys did enjoy this video and you want to see more, you can go down below and subscribe. I've made a bunch more Foreflight videos you can easily check out if you like this content. And if you want to see more where else I am, you can go check out my Instagram down below as well. I post every now and then on there. And then finally, what I said earlier in the video, if you want to learn more specifically about this stuff, I offer a Foreflight course online in my website where you can go and book a session on whatever you want to book it on, and we will go through Foreflight together and help you understand the basics of how the software works. Whether you're a pro and you want to know the specifics, or you're just a beginner, you just bought an iPad and you're like, man, I'd like to just get a crash course on this. Go down below to my website. You can book a session with me anytime I'm free, and we can go through it together and help you get prepared for what you need to do with getting to understand this amazing tool that we now all have in our cockpits. I also offer a free 30-minute consultation on my website as well that you can book if you would just like to get more information about aviation and how you can get started. So go down below, check out my website. There's a lot of cool things down there that you may or may not like. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching once again. I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. See ya!